Hey everybody, welcome to my What's on My Keeper Shelf video, Urban Fantasy Edition. Now, I'm going to talk about the authors of the urban fantasy genre that I love and highly recommend, and a little bit about each of their series, and I'm also going to do a giveaway, so stick around and watch till the end of the video if you want to win. Hey everybody, it's urban fantasy time. I have been a fan of urban fantasy for a while, and it took me a while to get into it, I admit it, and I'm not getting into all of it. Personally, I'm not much of a vampire fan, but I like shapeshifters and I love magic and psychics and elemental kind of stuff, powers and shit. Anyways, so I'm going to jump right in and tell you who's on my keeper shelf, one by one, okay? First person on my keeper shelf, Jennifer Estep. She's hooked me. Now, how she hooked me in the first thing was her Elemental Assassin series. This is one of the books in it, okay? The first book in her series is called A Spider's Bite. Now, it wasn't necessarily the spider that caught my eye. It was the Elemental Assassin series title that got me, because I've been a long-time thriller reader, and assassins and anti-heroes, well, I love them. They're just, I don't know what it is about them I love. So I started reading it, and she hooked me with the first book I was in. I think it was probably around book 3 or 4 when I actually met her in person at a conference. We were on an anti-hero panel together, and it was so hard not to fangirl over this woman because I love these books. Now, the main character is Jin Blanco, and she's an assassin. The world is enough like our modern day world that it's not super confusing. But it's also different enough that there is, elementals are real, vampires are real, trolls are real, dwarves are real, giants are real, shifters, there's all kinds of magic, and everybody has their own personal rune, like R-U-N-E, rune. So that, yeah, I know, I'm Canadian, so sometimes my words or pronunciation is different. So I thought I'd spell it out. But they all have houses and runes, and crime, where she's set up, is out in the open. It's kind of like a mob, magic mob kind of thing. She is a ice elemental and a stone elemental, so she has 2 elements at her disposal. Plus, she's wicked deadly with knives, because that's her weapon of choice as an assassin. How she gets to be an assassin is the core of her story arc, so I'm not going to ruin that for you, except to say that it has to do with revenge and family. So, if you love stories that center around mob syndicate like crime and family and revenge with magic thrown in, you need to check out the Elemental Assassin series. Now, to talk more about this author, oh, and I forgot to tell you, there's like 16 books in the series already, so if you like to glom and read a whole series, this is there. And there's little short stories thrown in, and she has free reads on her website, so be sure to check it out. I have an advanced copy of Venom in the Veins, the next book coming out on that one, so I'll be releasing a review of that one soon. Okay? Now, one of the reasons why Jennifer Estep is on the top of my keeper shelf for urban fantasy authors, and for almost any author actually, is because I liked her Elemental series so much that when she came out with a young adult series called the Mythos Academy, I read it. I took a chance because I wanted something to read, and she was a really good storyteller. And the main character in that one had a gypsy talent for psychometry, which I love, anything kind of psychic like that. So I started on that one. And again, this one centers around Greek mythology. Mythos Academy is like a school where, young adults are, and they all have different backgrounds. Like some are Spartans, and some are Valkyries, and some are, gypsies, or like, and they're all in school together. So it's got your young adult drama, but it's also got the Reapers, which are the bad guys, and they're trying to take over the world, and the Greek gods and goddesses that all have a champion, and their champion is who fights their battles on Earth, because they're not on Earth. But it's well worth checking out. She has a talking sword. So anyway, it hooked once I read that one, and I'm not really a young adult reader, and it hooked me. I was like, okay, I am a fan of this author for life. Now, after the Mythos Academy, she came out with the Black Blade trilogy. That's this one. Okay. Now, this is an advanced copy that I got because I do have it in digital. But see, she knows I'm a fan, so yay! And I'll review because I'm pimping her. I'm not pimping her because I get free books, because I don't always get free books. And I'll show you right here, see, my Kindle with all of the books of hers that I've bought. And obviously I bought this one, and I have lots of her print ones you'll see in the videos. But advanced copies are such a mixed bag, and I'm sure other reviewers will say this too, because you get to read it as soon as it's out, like before it's out, and it's awesome because you get to know what other people don't know. But at the same time, that means it's that much longer until the next book in the story comes out, and that's hard. But by the time the next one comes out, I reread the other ones again, and I'm back up to, so you get to really dive in and enjoy that world. Now, what I liked about this one, the Black Blade trilogy, is again another anti-hero. She's not an assassin, but she's a thief. And this one's only a trilogy, so the main story arc and everything wraps up nice and neat in a 3, but sometimes it's nice. Like, I love the Elemental Assassin series because it goes on, and like I said, we're on like book 17 now. I love that. It's dependable, and I enjoy each story. But a trilogy like that also has its benefits, because I'm sure, I know as a writer, it's got benefits for both. The writer gets to live in a different world for a while, because you can get tired of writing the same thing over and over. Well, not the same thing, but the same characters, and in the same world. So this gives them a chance to get into a different world, and us a chance also to read a short ending story like that. Does that make sense? So Jennifer Estep also has the Big Time series, which I admit I have not read yet. I think that was her first series, and I haven't read it. I haven't even bought any of them yet. It's on my list that I'm going to get to, but so many other good things, I just haven't quite gotten there yet. And I'm going to, because I know I'll love it. I think I'm waiting until I have like 2 weeks of holidays so I can read them all at once, because that's the kind of, I want to just jump in. Okay, next up on my Urban Fantasy Keeper list, Ilona Andrews. I don't know if I say it Iona or Ilona. Let's just say Andrews, because technically it's actually a writing team, a husband and wife, Iona and Gordon. I'm saying Iona because that's just seems to be the way I want to say it. Okay, so they're a writing team under this name. Now they write the Kate Daniels series, among other things. Now, that's how I was introduced to them. I have a funny story about this one, because when I first discovered this series, I bought the first 3 books, and at the end of the 3rd book, when I hadn't learned the secret of Kate's blood, although I think I did, but the rest of the world didn't, and, well, I did. Like, the readers who follow the clues, you figure it out and everything, but it wasn't just that, it was the romance aspect between her and Curran. I kept waiting and waiting, and it seemed like it was going to get there, but at the end of the 3rd book, I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to rush out for the 4th one. So I didn't. I had the 3. I'd probably get to the 4th eventually. I might eventually get to it, but it wasn't a big thing. Jordan Summers, who is an author friend of mine, read the 4th one and reviewed it, and she said the payoff was huge. She's like, if you read the first 3 and you enjoyed them, you have to read the 4th. You will not be disappointed. You will be hooked. So I took her word for it, and I went out and I got the 4th book, and I read it, and she was absolutely fucking right. It was a huge payoff in so many ways, and I am hooked on that series and highly recommend it as well. Now, the thing is, with Kate Daniels, there was also, they do a lot of spin-offs and a lot of short stories with other characters and secondary characters, and even short stories from Curran's point of view, because the whole series is in Kate's first-person point of view. Now, Kate is sort of a mercenary. Well, yeah, she's a mercenary. It's in an alternate world. It takes place in Atlanta, where technology grew to be so big in the world that the magic fought back, and now the magic comes in waves. So sometimes magic is king and sometimes tech is king. When magic is king, you have to chant to get your car started, and you have fey lanterns that light things up, and guns don't work, and phones don't work, and electricity doesn't work, things like that. And when tech is king, spells can go awry and things like that. So a lot of the people use weapons, like Kate is a master swordsman, use weapons or ride that don't require either technology or magic, and ride horses or use horse-drawn characters or donkeys and things like that. The world is inhabited by shapeshifters called the Pack. And another thing that I absolutely love about this world is her take on vampires. I said I wasn't a big vampire fan, and that's totally true. Aside from the fan that I was a Buffy and Angel, well, I was an Angel fan. I think that might be more David Boreanaz than Angel. But anyways, the vampires in Kate Daniels' world are people that sign over a contract to the people, who is like, again, a syndicate or whatever, like a big company. They call themselves the people. And they sign over a contract. They sign over, in death, they take the amortis pathogen. It's a virus. And they agree to take it. And what happens is it keeps their bodies alive and turns them basically into vampires. But the vampires, in my mind, they look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. You know, they're like skin and bones and killing machines that are hungry. Now, they are controlled by necromancers, and the necromancers are the people, and they work out of a casino. So they can stay in the casino where it's nice and safe and send their vampires out by controlling their minds to do their dirty work. And, you know, I just like that because that seems more truthful about vampires. And again, magic, and there's a whole lot of history and some biblical references and all this kind of stuff that just make the whole series and the whole world so well-rounded and full and deep that you can sink into it. And the fact that they have those short stories and spin-offs that you can also delve into make it even better, because then it's not just this tiny little part of the world. You get to see that this is a world. Which brings me to the fact that Hugh, one of the main characters, is getting his own story, and Iron and Magic, the pre-order link is up and it's coming out soon. So if you're following that series and you didn't know that, check the links in the description for the pre-order link for Iron and Magic. Ilona Andrews also has the Hidden Legacy series, which I read, and their titles, this Hidden Legacy thing is a different world, but it is covered with magic again, and each different family setting. So again, I'm seeing a theme now that I'm talking about this. Kind of like an organized crime thing where the families or houses run things, okay? And it starts with everybody having abilities or legacies. I'm trying to tell you enough about these series and these books that you'll check them out and that you'll, give them a chance, even if you just take them out of the library or whatever, without spoiling things, because to me, the joy in reading is learning things as you read them. It's just like movies. I'm trying to avoid the spoilers, but tell you enough to hook you. Okay, the Hidden Legacy starts with Burn For Me. And like I said, it talks about it has the different houses, and everybody has a magical rank. A prime is, well, obviously the prime. They're the strongest with their magical abilities. Now, our heroine in this series is keeping her powers secret because she has a power that everybody wants. And she doesn't think she's a prime because primes rule the world, and she's very just keeping my family safe and making money for us to survive. And she's got her mother and her grandmother and her sisters and brothers. So if you like stories that center around families, then you're like true families, not just the crime families. But you'll really love it because it's very much about family and staying together. So there's 3 books out in this series right now, and they have announced that there's going to be more. Yay! Because they were really, really enjoyable and really good. And while that original story arc did end satisfactorily, I just want more. There's other characters in there that I want more of that finally started to shine in the end, like her sisters and her brother and stuff, and I want more of their world, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So I'm super excited about more hidden legacy. Next up on my keeper shelf will not be a surprise to anybody who reads urban fantasy. Patricia Briggs. Lots of people know her for her epic fantasy books. I've never read any of the epic fantasy ones. I've only read the Mercy Daniels and the Alpha and Omega series ones. Now, Alpha and Omega is a spin-off from the Mercy Daniel world, and I really enjoyed the first couple of books in it, and I'll read the other ones, but they're not necessarily on my keeper shelf. They're ones that I'll take out of the library instead of purchase, just because I'm not a super huge fan of them quite yet. But the Mercy Daniel series I love. Again, it's a female heroine who is like a fish out of water because she's a coyote shifter in the world of werewolves. Okay, so there's werewolves, and obviously by the title Bloodbound, there's vampires. Plus, she's also a female mechanic, and I love females that work untraditional occupations. You would think that being a coyote among werewolves and vampires is enough to make this Mercy stand out, but it isn't. She's also immune to some vampire magic, and she's friends with fae, and she's got a big secret about her coyote-ness and where it comes from that I'm not going to tell you about because you need to read the series. So that's all I'm going to say about that one because I don't want to do any more spoilers, except that if you like romance and you like urban fantasy, or even if you just like urban fantasy, you need to get those books. Next up, Faith Hunter. I don't have any books to show for her because I've only read her ebooks. I found her actually through the library. So I read the first few Jane Yellowrock books out of the library, and then I started buying them digitally. Okay, now Faith Hunter is Jane Yellowrock. I told you that I'm not a huge vampire story fan, which explains why I probably only picked this one up at the library. But what it is I got hooked on it because she isn't your typical romance heroine vampire hunter. This woman is a shifter as well. She is a Native American-based skinwalker who can shift into other shapes of animals if she has their DNA. And there's a secret about the cat that she shifts into. Beast. And Beast is also just another character actually in the story. And of course the vampires are not, although the vampires in it are described as being super good looking and sexy and attractive, they're also kind of evil, which I like because I think vampires should be evil. But of course all it's not that I think that they should be evil because they don't have a soul or anything. I feel like they're probably evil because they're probably very, very cynical because they've been around for centuries. I mean, think about it. I'm only 48 years old and I'm pretty cynical. Could you imagine if I was like 148 or 248 or 948? Like, come on. So you get pretty cynical about people and you get probably very selfish and you want to keep living. So, that's kind of what I think vampires are like. So anyways, Jane is a vampire hunter, and she rides a Harley, and she wears leather, and she carries stakes, and she's got a smart-ass mouth, and I love her. There's just nothing about her that I don't love. As the series goes on, like many others, like Jin in Jennifer's Elemental Assassin, and also like Mercy. Well, Mercy kind of has friends to start with, but like Jin for sure. Jane starts to accumulate family and friends that she feels the need to protect. And they might not be family by blood, but they're family of her heart. And that affects the story. And that is why I love them. Now, Faith Hunter also has a spin-off series called Soulwood. And I'm hooked on that one too. With Faith Hunter, I am going to do an honorable mention to C.E. Murphy and the Walker Papers, because C.E. Murphy wrote the Walker Papers series, which starts with Urban Shaman, and Again, the only reason I'm not mentioning her in the top is because that series is over, and I absolutely fucking loved that series. Okay? It has to do with, well, shamanism and magic and more, esoteric, I guess, and the fae and the wild hunt, things like that. You'll really like it. And again, these two wrote a short story called Easy Pickings where their characters actually meet up, and it was phenomenal. I loved it. I love creative little things like that. Speaking of which, I'm also going to link to the Yellowrock Securities website so you can check out. Last but definitely not least on my urban fantasy keeper shelf is Candace Blevins. Now, most people, especially if you know me, probably think of Candace as an erotic romance author because that's what she mostly writes. Now, the Kirsten O'Shea universe has a couple of books. It's all kind of in the same world, but the BDSM books are strictly contemporary, and the RTCM ones are, of course, the Rolling Thunder motorcycle books, where the bikers are werewolves. Okay, now the werewolves are members of the paranormal community in the Only Human series. So they're all kind of sort of tied together if you want to read them all. But if you don't want to read them all and you have no interest in the BDSM, don't worry about it. If you have no interest in the bikers, don't worry about it. Just read the Only Human series. Or start at the beginning with the Dragon King and read all of them. I'll link to the Kristen, to her page, to her website down below in the description. And you need to check it out because you need to decide which ones you can read. I personally read them all because I love them. But the reason she's going on as one of my urban fantasy favorites is because her urban fantasy world, again, is not typical. It has vampires and shifters, yes, but it has magic and it has fae and a dragon king and a swan king. And her heroines aren't typical, as in they do some pretty dark shit and they do some killing, and her heroine in the Only Human one is also a bit of a masochist, I guess, and so there's some sexy aspects to her urban fantasy as well. And there's different levels, like there's layers of hell, and then there's different types of vampire. Her vampires have different breeds. Some are good guys and allies, and some need blood, some take energy, some are bad guys that work in the hell dimension and they're trying to take over the world. She herself, as a heroine, is the reason it's called the Only Human series is because she's human, but she manipulates energy in a way that somebody who has done a lot of studying of energy. So if you believe in psychic abilities and the transference of energy and psychometry and things like that, then you're gonna love this series. Okay, so that's my urban fantasy roundup of who's on my keeper shelf. That's my keeper shelf, and I highly recommend every one of those authors that you check them out. To encourage you to check them out, I'm going to do a $10 gift card giveaway. I know it's not much, but it's just enough for you to check them out. So it will be winner's choice if they want it to be a Google Play gift card, iBooks, or Amazon. Okay, so how do you enter to win? First of all, thumbs up on this video, like it. Second of all, comment in the bottom with if you're an urban fantasy reader or not, and if you are, who is your favorite urban fantasy author? Yes, you can name more than one. But hey, I am open to reading more, and if any of the ones that I mentioned are your favorites, mention them too, okay? And I will do a random draw for the giveaway. Now, if I get more than 100 likes or more than 100 comments, more than 100 people, I will do another one. So for every 100 people, I will do a $10 giveaway. Make sense? I'll post the winner's name in the description after 5 days. So that means Monday morning, I will post the winner in the description of this video. It is up to you to come back and check. You will have 24 hours to claim your prize before I pick another name. Make sense? Yes, I expect you to come back and check. But I'm telling you when to check. Check back on Monday. You will have 24 hours to claim your prize. Does that make sense?